Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. Thanks for joining us for this month's CloudBytes Sage Intacct series by Dean Dorton. Today, our Software Services Director, Philip Massey, is here to walk us through all the new updates and new features in the third Sage Intacct release of 2024. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please use the Q&A icon to ask. I'll be monitoring those throughout the session, and I'll make sure to get the questions to Philip during the Q&A period at the end. There will be contact information, including at the end of the slide deck and also in the follow-up email you'll get. This is being recorded, so you'll get a link to the recording and slides in that follow-up email as well. And Philip, go ahead and take it away.
All right. Thank you very much, Nikki. I appreciate the introduction, and thank you all for coming. Looks like we have a good-sized crowd today, so always love to see folks seeing the emails go out with the announcements for these type of things and taking time, I should say, out of their day to attend. We really appreciate it. One good news item for today is I don't think this is going to take the whole hour. So we'll be able to let you go a little bit early. But there are a lot of good new features that have been added, a lot of things to talk about in this release. I think we can just get through it in a little bit of a timely manner and get you back on your way. So as Nikki said, if you have questions about anything, please do let us know. Type them out in the chat. Somebody will see it. We'll raise the question. We'll talk about it. Would obviously much rather discuss it while it's fresh on the minds. So please feel free to jump in with any kinds of questions that you do have. With that in mind, we will jump in. So today's presentation is on the release 3 of 2024, which is out this month. So if you haven't seen the news, haven't seen the release schedule, it's definitely something that is in the Intacct application on the homepage. You can take a look at it there and see this release as well as the one in November too, that's going to be coming out, release 4. So let's jump in and get started. So there's 3 main topic areas within the release 3 this time, and you can see those in this overview slide. Overall, looking to boost organizational efficiency and enhance decision-making insights. The 3 pillar areas are strengths in financials and platform, which is the bread and butter of the Intacct solution. The automation and reporting advancements, which is always definitely a way to further utilize the software and get more for that annual fee that you're paying every year than even the release before gave you. And then we'll talk about some industry insights, although there's one of those in there that, quite frankly, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I'd kind of passed over as something I thought, that's a specialized thing. It's not really going to be that great. And then I watched the video, which we're going to send you a link to be able to watch as well. And it really started churning things in my head to make me think about different ways that this could potentially be used. And I'm pretty excited about it. I definitely want to get my hands on it, learn more about it, and see what types of things we can bring to our customers based on this new functionality that's available. So, hopefully we'll cover that one. So on the strengths in financials and platform, we're going to delve into how users have clearer, transaction history visibility in order entry and purchasing, so you can see further back in the process life cycle on one screen without having to continue to drill. A new dashboard on some usage insights and statistics and information about the users. and some top customer requests to manage credits after payments are posted. So we'll talk about that unapply option as well. In automation and reporting advancements, the AI-powered AP automation is now fully available in all regions, so except for Germany, I should say. And that's really big for us to have that out in the general availability. There's some new reporting capabilities in Interactive Custom Report Writer that we'll take a look at. And employee expense automation is now in early adopter. And I think that's going to be something that is just going to continue to be more exciting as time goes on for that. So excited that's in early adopter, and looking forward even more to what comes of it after, as it progresses through early adopter, I should say, and becomes generally available. We'll talk about forms and operation flows. We'll mention the Canso connector that's available now. That is a very, very industry-specific application, so I won't spend a whole lot of time on it. And then for those that are on or need contracts, there are some enhancements on the contract side, including the ability now to just get the contract dimension as opposed to the entire contracts module. So something new there just coming out. All right. So we'll talk some about these features. We'll also try to point out where these things are additional costs, where they might be, built into the system, and give you a little bit of a context as far as what you might have to do to take advantage of these features as well. So first, originating document workflow and order entry and purchase orders. So this is in those two modules. This is, those two modules have, for those of you that use them, they have the transaction definitions that give you the ability to create different workflows and how you convert a quote to an order to an invoice, or a requisition to a purchase order to a purchase receipt, etc. In this release of Intacct, not only now can you see the parent document information, which you've always been able to do very easily from the resulting transaction, but you now have the originating transaction listed here as well, directly on this screen. So that puts it at your fingertips to where you don't have to drill into this parent transaction to get back to the originating transaction. You have it right here at your fingertips, which makes things easier to review as you're going through your process, which, again, ultimately, if you're using those modules and you have questions, it is something that could potentially be a holdup in your month-end close as well. So it's good to be able to have that. The other very nice aspect of this is that information is available in custom reports now. So prior to this, you were unable to really pull back a lot of that history into a report because of the fact that it wasn't directly linked like that. Now it is available in custom reporting applications to be able to have lists of invoices processed, for example, and a column next to it that says the originating transaction, which could be a quote, could be an order, in case of purchasing, of course, could be a requisition, that type of thing. So it gives you more of that direct link back to how transactions got started without having to do a lot of diving in order to find it. So we're excited about that. For those that use that module, that's going to be a big help for them to be able to reconcile transactions that have taken place. In this release, we're introducing a new series of usage insights as well. These are intended to provide better statistics and information to our users about their operations. So for release 3, we're offering an operational dashboard that provides high-level information to facilitate decision-making about your accounting processes, such as active customers, vendors, user counts, and other core insights. Sage is going to continue to add additional information to help customers make operational decisions regarding staffing, productivity, and more. So essentially what this is going to get down to here is it's going to give you insights into how you're using the system, right? Are you really taking advantage of the different parts and pieces of the Sage Intacct solution in the way that you should be? Are your users taking advantage of the system, or perhaps are they not using some aspects that they could be using? Do you have users maybe that haven't logged in a long time and they have a user account, but they haven't logged in and they're not using the system, which quite frankly gets down to those operational decisions. How are they doing their work if they're not logging into Intacct? Do they need that license for Intacct? Is there something else that can be done, repurposed, re-provisioned within the system so that you're taking better advantage of the Intacct solution than you currently are right now? So this is something that would be out there for everybody. This is something that is freely available to everyone. And I did not mention before, but the originating document workflow piece that we saw on the previous slide, nothing you need to do. It's going to be built into the application, and you can see that going forward with this release. Same thing here with the usage insights. We do give you the path up here so that you can find these usage insight metrics. But if you'll go to this location with this release, you'll then be able to see these metric informations. And, certainly if you all have any questions about how some of this looks, or, what does this mean for your organization, we would be more than happy to sit with you and answer those questions and, try to give you some additional insight as to what these different metrics mean. All right. So for everyone that has accounts payable, which is probably everybody on the call, I don't know of many businesses that are lucky enough to not have to pay any vendors. So unapplying AP credits, this actually came out of the Community Hub. So for those of you that think, man, I'd really like to have this changed, but nobody's going to listen to me, that's not true, right? There is the Community Hub. Everyone should have access to that Community Hub that you can log into the system, and you can find whether it be potentially doing some searches on different things, or whether it be posting through ideas in the system, which the idea portal is the area where you would go to put in a suggestion for how the software could be changed. The more votes on ideas, the more likely it is to climb the ladder, and the more likely it is to get into a release. And that is exactly what happened here. Unapplying AP credits was a top community idea to fill a product gap. And this enables customers to easily unapply credits that were previously applied in the accounts payable module. Okay. It's useful when you need to switch the payment of a credit, or switch the payment, that a credit was applied to, and can also be used in cases such as applying advances and debit memo adjustments that were applied without an accompanying payment, unapplying a credit applied at the same time as a payment, and just plain old reversing an applied credit. So this gives you that ability to unapply credits in the accounts payable module. So nothing you need to do to be able to take advantage of this, other than perhaps some permissions to be able to unapply. And that, if you don't see it in the in your system with this release, maybe check permissions, or again, reach out to us and we would be happy to help you, point you in the right direction, that kind of thing. Okay. All right. So those are the things that we had kind of in that operations and financials type area, to be able to enhance what you're doing, what you're working on, and your ability to work within the system in those core financial areas. So in this particular set of circumstances here, the originating document workflow, like we mentioned before, it's improving the experience in order entry and purchase orders. It's for the purchasing managers and staff, and these are some of the ways that it can help you. And usage insights, again, here giving you that look into what is being performed in your system, who is performing transactions in your system, to make sure that you're getting the best utilization out of the system that you're paying for on a regular basis. And then unapplying AP credits. Again, this is something from the community. So please, if you have ideas, and also if you have ideas and you post them out in the community, send them over to somebody at Dean Dorton on the software team, and we'll be sure to push it around and get our team to vote for those things as well as appropriate, and that can boost the vote count on the ideas. I will say that it is a good idea to search for ideas first before posting one, to make sure if something's out there that is already expressing what you want, you can vote on that one as opposed to adding another one into the system. All right. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the AP automation. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. Most of you have probably heard this a lot, but it is the AP automation tool that is in Sage Intacct. It is an AI-powered AP automation tool, meaning it's got machine learning in it. And essentially, it is a methodology for ingesting, either via email or upload, invoices from vendors. PDFs, Excel files, any of that type of stuff, getting that information into Intacct and having Intacct process that document for you. New in this release, also in beta testing or early adopter type environments, is a purchase order integration with purchase order matching. So we're excited about that process. We're hoping that all of that testing, all of those folks that are in that early adopter get through the process and everything works great, and we can go ahead and get it out into general availability so that we'll have that PO match function process built into the system very soon in a standard general availability. Okay. But that's been out for a little bit, but excited that that's been fully released in a lot of different areas within the world, really. So it's good to have that built into the system now. So expense automation. Now, this is an area that is in early adopter. When you if you want to be a part of an early adopter program, if we're ever mentioning something to you and you want to be a part of that early adopter program, reach out to us, erpsupport@ddaftech.com, send an email, we'll grab it, and we'll help you get into that early adopter program. But this is one of those cases, right? So we're going to have an ability built into the system soon for phone receipt capture of expenses. So, you know, how great's that going to be? Not going to have to necessarily go out to an ISV or third-party solution to pick up that kind of functionality. It's going to be something that is in the Intacct application, part of the core Intacct solution. Not saying there won't be a cost for it. There very well may be, but it will be built in and part of the solution. It will read the invoice and it will populate an expense report. So very similar to what we're doing with the AP automation. We're now extending that over on the expenses side through the early adopter program. And we are giving folks the ability to utilize more of the Intacct solution as opposed to, again, having to go out and get a third-party tool in order to accomplish that type of transaction. So if you want to be involved in this, we're happy to give you some more information on it. We're happy to try to get you into the early adopter program. Just let us know, send us that email, and we'll see what we can do. No guarantees, but we'll see what we can do. So we've made some enhancements to the interactive custom report writer, introducing multiple new order entry reports, providing instant access to data such as any basic order information. So any of those, that essential data that's right there on the order, perhaps right there on the invoice, the header, those types of things. Some sales summary information to analyze and help analyze that sales performance, and detailed customer aging reports to better analyze and better understand your customer agings, to be able to break it down by different criteria and help manage that cash flow more effectively. So really excited about those new reports that are in the interactive custom report writer. Just as a note, ICRW is an add-on module. It is part of and produced by Intacct, but it is an add-on module that has an annual cost. So if you don't have it and these things look intriguing to you, then please reach out to us. Again, we'll be happy to discuss with you what the capabilities of the system are and whether or not it might meet the needs that you have. I think it's a pretty good tool. It's got a lot of good features to it. It's got a lot of capabilities, and the more stock reports and objects and things like that Intacct adds to the system, the better the product is going to be just as a result of that. So purchasing reports, again, yeah, it's kind of like the same types of things that we identified on the order entry side. We're just talking about those in on the purchasing side of things. Quick overviews of your purchasing activity with the basic summary by vendor and order. Identifying recurring purchases. So any of those recurring procurement transactions that you might have out there, pulling those into the system, helping you match that information, and maybe even helping you get better terms with your vendors, right? So putting something out here that, again, is actionable for you, that allows you to take advantage of relationships that you have and hopefully get better terms in this case. And then, of course, with transactional details, kind of like what you're seeing on the screen here, diving deep into each transaction, detailed reports, being able to drill into the information, making sure that you have accurate information on the purchasing side and that the transactions have been keyed and managed and processed properly in the system. So a couple of nice things inside of the interactive custom report writer. And again, if you don't have ICRW, we would be more than happy to talk with you about what that module can do and what its costs are, and just analyze and see if it would be something that would benefit your organization. All right, so let's look at a summary here real quick. All right, so a multi-device employee expense automation solution. Basically, multi-device, you'll be able to take pictures of the receipts from your phone. If you got multiple salespeople, it's multiple phones. They're all feeding into the Intacct solution and streamlining that process of creating an expense report, and potentially, if it works for you, eliminating a need for an ISV or third-party solution. We've had some folks use the AP automation tool inside of Intacct that have found it sufficient enough for them, and they did not need to go out and have the expense of an additional solution to be able to manage their AP tools. So potential there for the same thing here in expenses. ICRW order entry reports, giving you that detail in order entry. And in a lot of ways, both of these giving you that starting point for, okay, hey, here's where the data is coming from in this example report. It's giving me good information, but here's where the data is coming from. And I can go now and I can create my own reports that may be more of what I'm looking for, right? Okay. So those enhancements are there. Glad to have those into the system. Looking forward to the expenses piece and what will come out of that as it progresses through early adopter. So here's the one that I was alluding to earlier, in that honestly, I had kind of just brushed this one off and not really thought much about it, but watched a video on it. We're going to send you the link to that video. And granted, no, that video is not earth shattering. You're not going to walk away from that and say, my goodness, how has my existence been has my existence continued without this product in my life before? You're not going to do that, right? But I think that it gives you enough information to be able to see how this product can really be used. So, for example, if we were here, I would say, if we were all in the same room doing this, I would say, raise your hand if you have to deal with vendors. And I would ask, I would suspect I would get a lot of hands that would go up. Raise your hand if you have to deal with customers. And I would suspect I would see a lot of hands go up. If I were talking to nonprofits, I would say, how many of you have to deal with grants or have to communicate with grant recipients? Or how many of you have to communicate with people, right? And how many of you would really love if a lot of that stuff took a lot less effort to do? So the Sage Intacct Forms and Operational Flows product is a module that's been recently released. I don't truthfully remember if it was the first release of this year or exactly what the timing was. But it has been out for a little bit. Like I said, I brushed it off. I really didn't think much about it. But imagine if you had a vendor onboarding portal. That vendor onboarding portal would give you the ability to send a link to a new vendor that you wanted to deal with. Let's say when you were bringing on Intacct and you bought that from Dean Dorton, and Dean Dorton was a new vendor for your organization. And as part of that process, man, you just sent me a link and you said, hey, Philip, you sold us this software. Great. Glad to have you here. Click this link. It's going to take you to our vendor onboarding portal, and it's going to have every piece of information you would ever want to know about doing business with XYZ Corp. And it's going to have a form in there that you'll fill out. And we want you to fill out that form because, quite frankly, it's going to automate your vendor creation in the system and ensure that we don't transpose numbers, that we don't get your ACH information wrong, that you don't have to send us your ACH information through an email that could get intercepted by anybody out there. You're going to have control of it. You're going to put it into the system. You're going to make sure that it's right. Therefore, when we go to pay you, it's going to make it to you, right? Imagine selling it that way to the vendor being great about it, going in, keying it in, putting all their information into the system, and a vendor gets set up in Intacct, runs through some type of approval process, documents are checked, people look at it, review it, click some buttons, and there's the vendor in Intacct, and you're now able to process payments to them and all their ACHs, all their contact info, anything that you would want is in the Intacct solution. Imagine further if in 6 months it changes, the contact information at the vendor changes. You send me something as a payment notification. I'm like, yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for that. But actually, you should be sending this to Mary. So here's Mary's contact information. That can be easily adjusted. Either we could go in and change it in the online vendor portal and it would push to Intacct, or if I sent it back to you and said, hey, can you just update this email address? You go in, update it in Intacct. It also reflects in the vendor portal. So if I were to go back in my vendor portal and look, I would see that information. That's the kind of thing that you can do with Intacct Forms and Operations. So you can make onboarding customers easier. You can make onboarding vendors easier. You can make, as the example here in this particular screenshot, if you're a nonprofit and you are working with grants, this is a grant recipient portal, right? And it may be termed whatever you want to term it, but it all gets down to being able to create an entry point for external sources or internal, for that matter, to be able to input information that interacts with the Intacct application and has a bidirectional interface so that Intacct interacts with that portal as well. So the possibilities for streamlining your operations, for streamlining any onboarding processes, anything like that, ongoing changes in the system, anything of that nature are tremendous with Intacct forms and operational flows. One of the best things about it, absolutely, positively, no code in order to be able to make this work. You don't need to be a rocket scientist in order to be able to make this work. You don't need to be, and I love him to death, Ian D'Amelio. He's on my team here, and he's worked with me now for about 10 years. If you've had any development work done by Dean Dorton, you've probably heard Ian's name. You don't need to be an Ian D'Amelio, smart as a whip and knowing how to do code in order to make this work, right? It's all done within the software. Same premise as Intacct. You know, Intacct is built by finance for finance. You don't have to be an expert to write a custom report. You don't have to be an expert to add a custom field. And now you don't have to be an expert to create a vendor approval and onboarding process, a customer approval and onboarding process, right? So I'm excited about this. Truthfully, I haven't seen that much of it. A few demos. I have requested now some information to try to get more information about it and to see all the power of what it can do. And I'm hoping that in the near future, we'll have at least some blog posts, maybe to Nikki's delight, maybe a special webinar or two on the power of this tool, because I think there's potentially a lot there. Right. Another great example that we mentioned right here, the vendor contracting enhancements, exchange of contractual agreements, including e-signatures. Notice that, including e-signatures. So you could take this thing and you could really do a lot with the product, a lot of data collection, a lot of data sampling, and again, e-signatures. To be able to capture contracts and all those types of things. So think about it. You should hear some more from us in the upcoming near future. And I think it's got a lot of potential for adding a lot of additional capabilities and process automations in the Intacct application, right? That gives you then the ability, one, to make sure that the data getting in there is the data that the source intended you to have, and you don't have people with busy work that are creating things that could be done by an automation and a workflow. So the Canzo connector, Canzo software is a tenant billing and payment application. So it allows an organization for housing management solutions for public housing, native communities, and supportive housing. Canzo does. And we now have a direct integration with Intacct. With this release 3, much like you can purchase only the project dimension in Intacct without having to purchase full project management functionality, you can now purchase just the contract dimension as well. And that contract dimension for order entry revenue management will give you the capabilities to categorize things by contract, tag your transactions. It'll function a lot like all the other dimensions in the system, but it gives you one more place. If you're doing a lot of order entry, recurring billings and revenue management and those types of things, you'll have that functionality, but you also get another dimension that can be used to capture things even in AP and cash management, GL, all that type stuff, and code it back to that contract so you've got the full picture of what that contract brings to or costs your organization. So it's nice just to be able to get that dimension as opposed to having to get the full-blown module, which honestly, competitively priced, but expensive. Some updates to managing contract schedules. Mass updates to contract schedules is designed to save time and increase efficiency by allowing bulk management to multiple contract schedules. You can perform schedules for multiple contracts across a group of contracts, or for every contract for a customer, including the ability to hold and resume schedules in bulk, ensuring streamlined management of your contracts. They also allow you to apply billing schedules and provide even greater flexibility and control around the contracts that you do have. So in other words, being able to take all your contracts, make changes, manage those changes all in one place, rather than having to open each of them and make that change. So industry insights, again, let's keep an eye on this forms and operational flows tool. The e-signatures that's built into it, the number of pre-built flows that they're giving you with the product. And I think probably what you'll see too is just kind of a rise of organizations that are creating these portals, and maybe even some type of exchangeability of these different concepts that folks are building in there. So I see some good excitement with this forms and operational flows product. Those last statements were just my opinion. They are not deemed to be accurate by any governing body or anybody else. That's just me talking. Contract dimension can be licensed now as opposed to full-blown contract and billing, so that can save organizations some money and still give you that trackability of those contracts. Even though you might just be using order entry for your recurring billing, you'll still have that ability to get that contract dimension, which will greatly enhance your overall capabilities for reporting. And then mass updates to contract schedules, as we talked about. All right. So I didn't think we'd take the whole time today, and we are not. Nikki, I'll check in with you now and see if you have any questions.
I do not see any questions in the chat, which tells me that you have answered all of them during the presentation. But of course, if you think of any afterwards, or if you want to hurry up and get them in real quick, feel free to drop them in now, or follow up with Philip or the ERP support email address to get those questions answered.
Yep. So I'll pop this last slide up. So this is my contact information as well as the ERP support email. If you have any follow-up from today's meeting, feel free to use either one. I would say the ERP support at ddaaftech.com is probably better because it will get more eyes to it than just mine. So prefer you use that one, but either way you want to do it, we'll get back to you. I appreciate your time today. Nikki, thank you for setting this up and managing things. And, we'll see you the next CloudBytes section next month, if not the release 4 in November. Thank you.